In the last video, I showed off a build that was designed to make space TFOs easier for the random elite TFO queues. And in the comments of that video, a bunch of you asked if I was going to be doing a ground version of that video, so that's what we're doing today. Let's talk about ways to make ground combat a bit easier in the Elite Random TFOs. Now, this video is going to be a bit different. It's not going to be a straight up build guide, but it's going to be more just tips and tricks and other things that I use to make elite level content easier on ground, because there's a lot of variation that you can do for ground combat because, well, frankly, ground combat really isn't nearly as difficult as space combat. So one of the big things with ground combat that makes it different from space combat is that there's a lot more difference between the careers on ground than there is in space. In space, you can fly any ship you want and build it however you want. The only real difference that's going to be there between the careers is the individual captain's abilities that you'll have. That difference will still exist for ground builds as well, but there are also quite a few kit modules and a number of personal traits that are also career specific. Fortunately, none of those career specific things are going to make that much of a difference when setting up your ground build for elite level content. I'll start out by going over some of the things that I think are both essential and easy to obtain. This kit module is called Mud's Time Device and can be obtained from the Discovery Legends reputation. This is a very powerful kit module that is capable of improving your own survival as well as making your other kit modules more effective. While this kit module is active, activating any other kit modules will lower the cooldowns of those kit modules. So I activate Mud's Time Device and then I activate another kit module, and if I activate a third one, the previous one's cooldown will shorten by 15%. And that'll keep happening for the rest of them while Mud's Time Device is active. Every time I activate a kit module, it will lower the cooldown of every other kit module that is currently on cooldown. Lowering the cooldown of these kit modules means you'll be able to use them that much more often. Additionally, if you happen to die while Mud's Time Device is active, this will effectively reset your character. You'll teleport back to the location where you first activated the kit module, be fully healed, and you will lose all threat. However, this cheating death portion of the kit module will be locked out for a certain amount of time after it's been triggered. So you don't want to grow too reliant on it, but it can still be a really helpful layer of protection. Oh, also, be mindful of where you're activating this, because you probably don't want to activate this in the middle of a big group of mobs, because if you die, you'll just teleport right back in the center of that mob. Another item that is very helpful for survival is the Nakul Temporal Operative Personal Shield. This is rewarded from the episode The Temporal Front from the Future Proof arc. What it does is when the shield drops below 10%, it will automatically activate an ability called Time Slip. This ability will summon a temporal distortion of yourself for 10 seconds. This distortion will stay active for 10 seconds and it'll act like a pet. For the entire time that the distortion is active, you will be immune to damage and invisible to all enemies. Once triggered, this ability will then be locked out for 60 seconds. So this is another good layer of added protection against any incoming damage. First, the Nakul shield will trigger, which will give you a chance to regroup and recharge some things. And if things are still going crazy, you've got the Mud's Time Device to back you up even further. Another nice thing about this shield is that it is part of a set. The 3-piece is underwhelming, I wouldn't worry about it, but the 2-piece offers plus 2% to crit chance and plus 30% to crit severity, which is a nice buff to those stats. Personally, I would recommend using the weapon to get the 2-piece bonus, not to suggest that you should actually use it. As an actual weapon, it's actually fairly underwhelming. It's not bad either, there's just nothing particularly good about it beyond the 2-piece bonus. But you do have 2 weapon slots on ground, so you can just keep this in one of them, and use a weapon that you actually like as your main weapon. Another item that's really useful for staying alive is the Pavan Healing Crystal. This is rewarded from the episode Illusion of Communication in the Jo'ula's Discovery arc. This is a device that functions a lot like a hypospray. Hyposprays are useful healing items, but they are also consumable devices. So you always have to make sure that you keep them in stock. This healing crystal, however, is a persistent item, meaning it's not a consumable, so you won't run out of it. You will always have this on you as long as you have it equipped. It does function a little bit differently than a hypospray. The hyposprays will give you one single hit of health. How much health will depend on the type of hypospray you're using. But the crystal heals over time, giving a bit of health every second over the course of 15 total seconds. Additionally, the crystal will remove any hold or stun effects over the next 3 seconds. But one of the really nice things about this item is that when it's activated, its effects will be applied to the entire team, not just yourself. So not only is this a really good healing device for yourself, but it's also a really useful support device for the rest of your team. Oh, and another thing that's really nice about the Pavan Healing Crystal is that while it's technically not a hypospray, it will trigger other things that are triggered by hyposprays, such as a nurse or medic duty officer. so you don't have to worry about the rest of your ground build if you want to completely replace hypo sprays with this healing crystal. Another device that also dropped from an episode that I would definitely recommend picking up is called the Extirpating Remodulator. This one is dropped from the recent episode taken by surprise in the current Kings and Queens arc. When this device was released, it also came with an update that changed how remodulators work. It used to be that you had to have a remodulator device equipped in order to remodulate your weapons to make them effective against the Borg. But nowadays, every weapon has a remodulator built into it, so you don't have to have anything equipped in order to use one. However, there are still some remodulator devices that will now improve the base remodulation ability. Having this device equipped will not only lower the charge-up time of remodulation to 3 seconds, but it'll also remove any debuffs that might be on your character, and it will buff your damage for a short time. Considering that the Borg can now adapt to ranged weapons that deal physical damage, like the Tommy gun or Cockroach shotgun, you really can't rely on them anymore. So if you're going to be forced into using remodulation, you may as well have one that also buffs your damage at the same time. It also doesn't hurt that it's an episode reward, so it's very easy to obtain. Going back up to the body armor, I wouldn't call this piece 100% necessary, but I do think it is a very good piece of armor and is one I would definitely recommend. Randome CQC armor. It has some good defensive stats on it, but the main reason a lot of people like this armor is because of that plus 10% to crit chance and the plus 40% to crit severity that it offers. The plus 10% to run speed is nice too. This is why for the Not Cool set, I recommend using the weapon to get the 2-piece for that set. There is an armor piece for the Not Cool set, but honestly, this armor is far better. And being able to stack the crit chance and crit severity buffs from this armor, along with the crit chance and crit severity buffs from the Not Cool 2-piece, just makes both of them that much better together. And another really nice thing about Randome CQC armor is that there is an environmental suit version of it. So when you're in an area that requires you to switch to an environmental suit, you will keep those buffs to crit chance, crit severity, and run speed. Now, there are plenty of other things I could call must-haves just because they're very powerful, like the Baul Obelisk or the Agony Field Generator, but these are rather expensive items that come from the lockboxes. And honestly, calling those things must-haves is kind of an exaggeration just because you can get by without them just fine. We just like them because they're kind of overpowered. So the nice thing about that is, after the things that we've already talked about, it really leaves you a good amount of room to just kind of put whatever else you want on the build. I would definitely recommend abilities that buff your existing damage or deal some sort of AoE type damage. I'm also rather fond of pet builds, and there are a number of decent kit modules that function as pets. One I'd like to point out is the Gravity Containment Unit. This is also available from the Discovery Reputation. It's a cone-shaped pull attack, so everything in the cone in front of you will be pulled toward you and be dealt a significant portion of physical damage. It's a surprisingly powerful kit module and is very useful in a lot of cases. For a kit frame, there are a number of options you can go for, but the main thing you want to look for is one that has as much K-perf as possible. That is the kit performance skill. The higher that is, the more powerful your kit modules will be. Kit performance is probably the most important skill for ground combat. Now, it's very rare to find kit modules with K-perf 3 on them like this Ryzian kit does. This is done through a unique quirk with the Ryzian kit, so you're not going to find this on a lot of other kit frames. But generally, I find anything with Kit Performance 2 to be more than acceptable. Speaking of the Ryzian kit frame, this one can actually be pretty nice for a free-to-play build. The only setback is that it is purchased from the event store for the summer event. And the only time you can earn low-hot favors to buy this kit frame is during the summer event, obviously, which only comes around once a year and only sticks around for about a month. But when the summer event does come back around, I would definitely recommend looking into getting one of these kit frames, as well as at least a few of the kit modules as well. There is a trick to getting this thing to K-perf 3, I don't remember what it is off the top of my head at the moment, but I know someone will put it in the comments now that I brought it up, so just check down there. There are some other devices worth looking at as well, like the large kit overboosters. These are craftable consumables that will increase your kit performance for 10 seconds. Paradox Corrector can also be pretty nice for healing and reviving yourself and allies. This one comes from the Temporal Recruitment event. The Gambling Device works like a tribble. It's pretty good for buffing your kit chance and crit severity even more, but it does have a chance to fail, and in which case it does, it will give you a debuff instead, in which case you'll have to re-roll the thing. If you want something more reliable though, then I would recommend going with the Rainbow Tribble, which gives crit chance based on the number of people who are also using the Rainbow Tribble. This also comes from the summer event. There's also plenty of combat pet devices that have been released over the years. Most of the good ones were released through events, so if you didn't participate those, then you're probably only going to be able to get those out of Mud's Market, and most people don't want to buy anything out of Mud's Market because Mud's Market is very expensive. But if you do have one of those, don't be afraid to throw one in because they can be kind of useful. Taking a quick look at the skills, you can see I've got everything dedicated into weapon proficiency and kit performance. That should be of no surprise if you've been to this channel before. If you want a more detailed look at my skill tree and what each of the individual skills do, I do have a video for that already. I'll link that in the description, and a tag for that should be popping up right in the right hand corner right about now. For the specializations, like I said, this is set up for random TFOs, so I keep space in mind, so I always use Intel as my primary and Temporal Operative as my secondary. Commando would likely be a better secondary for ground combat, but honestly, who prioritizes their ground build over their space build? For your personal traits, again, you're going to want to focus on stuff that buffs your damage, buffs your crit chance or crit severity, or your kit skills, so that's kit performance or kit readiness. Kit readiness is the skill that affects your kit module cooldowns. So I've got things in here like creative, field technician, rifle training. All three of these are traits that you just get by leveling up. Covert and Lucky make a good combo as well. Lucky increases crit chance and expose chance, while Covert will increase exploit damage. Those two can be nice if you're running something more free-to-play focused. Oh, Up Close and Personal, that one's a decent one for a budget build because that gives bonus damage. This is rewarded from an episode, House Peg in the Iconian War arc. Oh, and there's Technophile. You can earn that one by leveling up your kits and modules school in the R&D tab. That one can offer short but very high bursts of kit performance. My ground reputation traits are pretty much the same for what I use for my space reputation traits most of the time. So there's Deadly Aim for crit severity, Lethality for crit chance, Personal Energy Amplifier, which increases my kit damage, Magnified Armaments, which gives bonus all damage, and Miniaturized Chrono Capacitor, which improves the recharge time of my kit modules. There are some other decent ones in here too, like Omega Weapon Proficiency is pretty nice, or Radiant Detonation Module, that one's pretty good too. There's also a few in here that can help out with heals, but I like these. Now, for your ground duty officers, it's important to find something that just synergizes with the rest of your build. Like here, I've got a fabrication engineer that has a chance to spawn additional support drones whenever I use the ability support drone. This one's exclusive to engineers, but you get what I mean. Like for tactical players, there are security officers that can increase the number of officers that you get with security team. I actually don't know what the science character equivalent of that would be. Someone tell me in the comments. But another truth about duty officers on the ground is that sometimes you're going to have to make room for stuff that will also affect your performance in space. That's why these first two are up here. Their damage buffs apply on both space and ground, so they're mostly there to buff my space builds. And sometimes you just want to use something that's funny, which is why Schroeder the randomly transporting Saurian is down here. So we've gone over some essentials, but really the big thing with ground combat is that you have quite a bit of freedom. Like, I didn't even go over a primary weapon that I think you should use because honestly, use whatever weapon you like. It's not going to make that much of a difference. Just make sure it's upgraded to Mark 15. Because really most of the power from a ground build comes from your kit modules, not so much your weapon. I mean, you could develop a build that is more focused on your weapon, but that's going to be more of a pain in the butt to set up, and it's really going to be more of a tactical focused thing than more than anything else. But your kit modules are going to be the really important thing, and even then, you've got a lot of freedom there. Just focus on stuff that gives you nice buffs, and stuff that gives nice AoE damage. So yeah, those are some of the things that I do for ground combat, even at the elite level. Fortunately, for the sake of ground combat, a lot of the stuff that's been in the ground combat meta is rather easy to obtain. Like, a bunch of this stuff is episode rewards or reputation rewards from the reputation projects, and, you know, a lot of it that isn't there that you can just fill up with other stuff that you already have on hand that you've either obtained through other episode rewards or, you know, picked up off the exchange from the log boxes or won through events. So yeah, I hope this has helped you in improving your existing ground build and making it ready for elite level content, or just giving you an idea for an entirely new build altogether. If you have any further questions, be sure to ask them down in the comments, and while you're down there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button to become a member, or if you're ever shopping on the Epic Game Store, be sure to use my content creator code STU1701. Either way though, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.